I speak to you in the name of the resurrected one, Jesus of Nazareth, the Christ, whom God has raised from the dead. Dear circle of all faithful people, relations bound together in Jesus Christ, raised from the dead, I am honored and delighted to be with you here in Grace Cathedral. The circle of relations who have gathered here bringing this liturgy to you have all filed out and are in the plaza listening to me over loudspeakers, as you may be listening on the other side of various screens and devices where you are. And yet, we are bound together, not so much by technology, but by love. It has brought us together here at the great Vigil of Easter. 3 years is the commonly held term for Jesus' active ministry. 3 years of intensity with a group of people who he gathered around him and who waxed and waned as they could accept or not his teachings. Only after the resurrection, only in the light of the resurrection, does it look like everything was tidy about those 3 years. We have ascribed to Jesus a kind of unhuman prescience about what was coming, about everything being predicted. He was not only fully God, but fully like you and like me. He was doing everything in his power to impart the truth of God's love to the people who gathered around him, the people he met, the people he encountered in villages and towns over those 3 years. And what his goal was only becomes clear after the resurrection. Days later, weeks later, as he is ascending into heaven, the Gospel of Matthew tells us that he sums up his commandment to all of us who follow his path in this way. Go, therefore, into all the world, baptizing and making disciples of all people. Baptizing and making disciples of all people. This is the sum total of what Jesus was teaching in those 3 years to the people who were his closest followers, his disciples. And it was not through, if you will, the courses that he taught, the courses in the parables, the courses in the miracles of healing, the courses in throwing out unclean demons, the demons of domination, of oppression, of colonization of the hearts and minds of the people. It was not in all those courses alone that his main teaching was to take place, but rather woven throughout them was the substrate, the basis of what he had to impart. And it was under even the ideas of baptism and making disciples. That is, learning to let go of all those things that have died in our lives and learning in the light of the new life that is given us to live as followers of the risen Jesus Christ, that is, his disciples. Baptizing, dying to that which is gone and no longer useful to us, never useful to us, and being discipled, being taught to live in the ways of love. In so doing, through all those things, the people around him, he hoped, would learn to be his disciples. And today, in the gospel that Nina proclaimed to us, we see that Jesus succeeded. 3 people, at least. There are more, but the focus is on those 3 tonight. Learned not only to be disciples, but to be beloved disciples. The first is Mary of Magdala. Mary Magdalene. She who is, we believe, Jesus' greatest student, his greatest disciple, the one who sat at his feet, a woman, and yet a student, and able to receive his deepest teaching and receive them into her heart. She is clearly a beloved disciple. It is she, motivated by the love that she received from Jesus, who takes herself to the tomb early in the morning without a clear plan as to how to roll this great stone away. She is motivated only by the power of love to go there. She finds that he is gone. The stone has been rolled away. The body is not there. She flees back, and she goes to two other people. Peter, a beloved disciple. Peter, who puts himself forward in every situation. We know this is the best way to learn. It is the hardest way to learn. It is said that the best educated people in the world are the people who have the hardest time learning a new language, a foreign to them language, because they don't want to make mistakes, and so they don't risk. We can never say that was true of Peter. He always took a risk, and he failed many times, and so he learned more. And what he learned most of all was that he was a disciple, and a beloved disciple. And the third one, not named, simply called the disciple whom Jesus loved, the beloved disciple. Much speculation, many trees have been turned into paper to hold the ink that tells the speculations of great scholars as to who the beloved disciple was, his identity. Many have said a disciple named John, and that name is put on the whole gospel. Others have said it was Lazarus. Lazarus, who Jesus said he loved, along with Lazarus' sisters, Mary and Martha. And when Jesus was going to Lazarus' tomb and he wept, the people around, the mourners, said, "Look how he loves him." It is only after the raising of Lazarus back into life from the dead that the beloved disciple makes his appearance in the Gospel of John. So people have said perhaps that is Lazarus' new name. John, Lazarus, but it's a deliberate choice not to name either John or Lazarus as the beloved disciple. This is intentional in the gospel because the beloved disciple is you, is the hearer of the gospel. And so those three, we can understand at least, receive the deepest teaching of Jesus. Beyond the parables, beyond the miracles, beyond the casting out of unclean demons, beyond the preaching, beyond the prayers, below all that, below even the two things that he leaves with us to do, baptizing and making disciples of all people, below all that is receiving God's love. Knowing that we are loved. Not only disciples, but beloved disciples. That is the status God has given us out of grace and that we have received. Unlike an earthly teacher, unlike your teachers, unlike my teachers, Jesus' teaching was not finished. His course on earth finished. He takes his place in the heavens, that is, in the deepest spiritual places of your heart. And from there, Jesus, the risen one, continues to teach. The work is not done. Beyond even each of us learning that we are individually beloved disciples, Jesus has a much bigger message to give to the world, and he chooses to give it through you. And that is that our lives individually as beloved disciples are gathered up tied together, bound together in cords of love, and together we are made into something new, the beloved community. All beloved disciples live together in the beloved community. Here, tonight, in the light of Easter, this is the gift God gives us. To know that before we loved, we were loved. And that empowered by that love, we move out of our isolation into communion, into the life of the beloved community. Beloved disciples, enter into the beloved community. Amen.